Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Government Operations Committee, Thursday, November 7th, 2024. Thanks you all for being here. We have quite a lot on the agenda this morning. Are there any changes to the agenda? I'll go to Rich.
Thank you, Amanda. There's a couple appointments for the Library Board of Trustees that I'd like to add for consideration. And I also have passed out to the committee a copy of the bylaws as submitted from, well, amended bylaws as submitted from the library for us to talk about. So I'd like to add that to the agenda.
Okay, I see two appointments, is that correct?
Correct. Sarah Clausen and Liz Chabot.
Okay, is there a second to add those on, Susan? So let's add those. We just coming up, we have other appointments, so we'll just add those two there. Yes. All in favor of adding those. That's 4, 1 opposed. And in terms of the bylaws, I'm happy to have a conversation about that. I'm not sure that we've had time to review them.
Yeah, and just, I think they've met the requirements from legislative clerk's office, except for one element, which is the number of members. They've left in a range. I think they're at a point they would change that to a definite number if that's what we wanted at this point. But I think we could talk about them today, and I could certainly make sure that they got to the committee for our December meeting if we wanted to proceed.
Sure. Let's, if there's a second to add them, Susan, and all in favor of adding 4, 1 opposed. Let's add that at the very end under committee members, and then if we have time and that makes sense, we can talk about that again. Okay? Any other changes? I believe there are other changes. So you have lots of papers on your desk. There's a revised resolution number 12772. There's a revised policy confidential data. There's a little bit more information on the legislator travel and training. And then there's also a budget transferred, not for voting, that is just for reference, right? That was not in the packet.
Only you have the email with the amounts for the travel and training.
Right. Okay, but yes, okay, all right.
The budget adjustment was on the agenda, it just wasn't included in the packet.
So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. We can ask questions as we go along. It's a lot. Okay, I think that's enough changes. Any comments from the public? I don't think we have anyone. Let's do the minutes from October 3rd. Greg moves, seconded by Susan. Any questions, comments, changes? All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have one appointment to the Public Information Advisory Board. Bruce Estes, at large, term expires December 31st, 2027. Can I have somebody move that? Greg, seconded by Rich. Questions, comments? Mike.
Bruce always does a nice job for us.
Bruce has been on for several years. He's the chair at the moment, and yeah, I think he does a great job. Rich.
Yeah, I was surprised to see his name there, that, he served at the Ithaca Journal for, I think, decades, right? It's great to have his involvement.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, let's look at the two appointments. One is a reappointment and one is an appointment to the Tompkins County Board of Trustees. Let's see, I don't have the little form. One is Sarah Clausen, and I'm going to look to Jordan. Do we know the end date of that term? It's probably 3 years.
I think it's, as stated in the bylaws, I believe it's a 3-year term.
Right, so that would be
Yes.
the end of 2028?
3-year term. Yeah.
It would be 12/31/2026 is the seat that she took.
Oh,
So
she's taking over
a vacant
a
seat.
vacant seat, okay. Okay, so that would be December 2026. Okay, and then the other is Liz Chabot, who is currently a member, and I'm thinking this is a reappointment for another 3 years.
I believe so.
It would be 12/31/2027.
2027. I'll just say a couple things. I have been thinking a lot about appointments and reappointments. Sorry, still getting my mind going this morning. I did not want to bring these forward right now. I believe our public library board of trustees is having a lot of problems. I believe our library is having a lot of problems. And I have been waiting, trying to work out the bylaws of the public library, which have not been updated since 2016. And I had wanted to get those approved and moved through this committee. And that has been held up for various reasons. So that's why Rich is bringing these forward. And I will probably vote against them because it's nothing personal against these people. I know Liz, I'm sure she's a fine person, but I don't think the board has been doing a good job. I don't know Sarah Clausen, and that kind of got me thinking about all the appointments that we do. And we have this application, there's a little bit of information on there, but I don't know her. I don't know how she's going to do for this board. I don't know if she's going to, move things forward in the way that I think it needs to move forward. I have suggested to this committee, as well as to some other legislators, that this legislature needs to take a bigger role right now, currently, in the selection of trustees. It is not normal. It is not the normal process that the legislature would try to step in and do more of an interview or nominating process. The Board of Trustees has a nominating committee, and they have always been the ones to seek out and interview and bring forward appointments that they feel would work for their board. I don't think that's working right now. And I have proposed to mixed response that this committee opens up the board application to the community, asks folks if they want to participate in this board. I think there's been a lot of interest in what's going on at the library right now, and I can imagine that there would be a lot of community members who would want to participate. I think if people are interested, they can certainly reach out to the current trustees and put in an application and talk to them, and I hope that the trustees and the nominating committee would consider folks. I still believe it would be a good idea for this legislature to take a more active role right now in who the trustees are. And on top of that, I am actually considering, I've been on the legislature for 7 years, considering all the appointments that I've raised my hand to of people I don't know. And we do have to trust our committees, and we have to trust the people who are on those boards, and generally we do. And that's why I've always raised my hand for those people. But when things go bad and things aren't working, we have to take a more active role, I think. And then just my last thought is that as the legislature, the Tompkins County Public Library is its own entity. They are governed by our county charter. They're also governed by New York State education law. So they're in kind of an interesting area where they have a lot of rules they have to follow. And we, as the Tompkins County Legislature, have limited ability for oversight. The 3 things that we can do for oversight are approve their bylaws, appoint members, and determine their budget, how much money we give them, not what's in the budget. And those are the ways that we have oversight, and I think that we need to have more oversight on those 3 ways right now. Susan.
Thank you. I have a question, and then I also have a couple of things to say. First, I am a reference for one of the members of the proposed, and I don't know whether it's okay for me to vote or not, but I will say, okay, good.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple, I agree with you on the current state of the Board of Trustees, and for the past several years, there's been some chaos and some misunderstanding of roles and responsibilities and how the library operates. I also think you make a good point about, we always raise our hand, you certainly have done that, but we do, but I was thinking about this, and each application has, someone, they are required to list references, and we've never called any references, so I think that might be something we could take up rather, than going to an extreme level. Because I think it is a good point, but we do get a lot of appointments, and it would take a lot of time to do that, so I think we have to be thinking about it. I also wanted to speak to one of the person that I'm a reference for, is that my belief that is the one trustee who has a great understanding of libraries and also understands what is happening, and I think is someone who could really help with the current situation. And I feel very strongly about that. The library is having challenging times, but I think we do have to walk that fine line of helping them get back to a better place and overstepping. But I very much appreciate what you're saying about paying attention to all advisory appointments. Thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, I don't have any additional comments to weigh in. I just want us to be careful that if we are going to speak to a named individual, to remind us that we should enter into executive session if we want to have more robust discussion.
Thank you. Yeah. Rich?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. I agree with what you said. I think that we probably do need to be more involved in working with the library, and particularly with the library board. I know Liz Chabot. I don't know Sarah Clausen. I would say that I think, just as a policy matter, having more medievalists in local government is a good thing. My father was a medievalist, so I'm totally biased there.
Can I just remind everybody about executive session, and we have to be very careful.
Yeah, I'm not going further than that. As the liaison to the library, I've spoken to them in executive session, and I have to be careful what I might share, but one point I've tried to make very clearly, and I think it's okay to say here, is that as the board works towards addressing issues that have been raised, in that effort, I believe they can have the full support of the county legislature, that working on these things, we want to help them. And having a functioning board is critical to getting there. And so that's why I'd like to get these done. I certainly agree we should be looking at the bylaws. I think there was some miscommunication because they approved the bylaws back in April, but there's one element that we never really sat down here and talked about involving the number of members. And so I'll raise that later on in the agenda. But I'd sure like to get these people appointed so they can dig in. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah, I think we should go ahead with these appointments. I think it's important that there be a full board at the library. We've always been super proud of our library, and all of us are a little. It hurts us if there's difficulty over there, and we know we can get this ironed out, because serving the people of Tompkins County with a library is so important. If I can, I just want to mention that Ethel Nichols used to be on this on the old Board of Representatives, and she was often quoted back then when there was some discussion about money for the jail and highway road patrol and those kinds of things. And there was some money, they were debating whether to give the library money back then. And she said, the library is something we do for the good people of Tompkins County. And we always thought about that with a wry smile. I just think it's important they have a full board so that more of the people on that board can contribute to whatever decisions need to be made in the future.
All right, anything else? I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of both of these appointments?
Amanda, I don't know if we had
Oh, I'm
motions
sorry.
for that.
Does somebody want to move them? Susan. Rich seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? That is 4-1. All right. I think that's all the appointments. Let's go to county attorney. And we have a resolution. Renewal of engagements for legal services with Romer, Wallens, Gold, and Minnow? Minnow. Can I have somebody move that? Rich, seconded by Greg. Maury, anything to share about this?
This is a long-standing engagement, and but each element of it came up for renewal this year. This firm is number one, done a great job for the county, and number two, is deeply embedded with my office's operations, so it didn't make sense to put this out to RFP at this time. It wouldn't be in the county's interest to change horses given all that they're doing, so that's why it's been put into a resolution as we are overhauling our professional services procurement policy. So that's why it's there. It was recently considered by BCP and passed, so that is what it is. I think everybody knows what they do for us and the service they've been delivering. And their rates are lower than anything I've seen regionally, so I think it's a great deal.
Great. Questions, comments, Rich, and then Mike?
I certainly agree the rates are reasonable here. I was curious, the retainer, are the rates, the hourly rates applied against the retainer, or are they above the retainer?
They are above the retainer. In other words, there are two engagement letters. There's the retainer for labor relations, which is basically an all-you-can-use of the listed services, and then for labor and employment law matters that go beyond what's on the list, they would bill hourly above the retainer. And the second one for just straight litigation, like our tort claims and other things we have them doing, That is a straight hourly engagement, and on those, I'm quite amazed at how quickly they get stuff done from looking at their billings.
Thank you.
Mike?
No, we've worked with this firm for many years and always seem to be happy with them. I don't know much about the firm. How large is it, and where is their main office?
Their main office is in Albany. I'm going to be guesstimating
That's all
about
right.
the size of the firm, but I think it's about 15 attorneys. There are four named partners. Of those, at least three have worked. Actually, all of them have worked closely with us. There's Earl Redding and Matt Ryan, who handle a lot of labor relations, labor relations, grievances, PERB charges. Jim Romer with Earl and/or Matt handles collective bargaining. Elaine Gold does a lot of benefits, 207C, workers' comp work. And John Minow has been helping me mostly with more esoteric things like procurement, reserve provisions, things like that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
And if anybody from RWGM is watching that I didn't mention, thank you.
You were right on their website says comprises of 15 attorneys. So good guesstimation.
Okay, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, let's go on to Board of Elections. We have acceptance of grant funding, Board of Elections electronic poll book grant. Somebody move that, please. Mike moves, seconded by Susan. Anybody have questions or other thoughts or anything? Yeah, Rich?
Is this an annual grant? Is this a one-time?
I'm guessing it's one time.
Norma just got on. Norma?
It's my understanding that this is one time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Wait, did we move it? We did. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, we have another acceptance of grant funding, Board of Elections, ID 12782. Can somebody move that? Greg moves that, seconded by Rich. This is actually two grants from the New York State Board of Elections. Any questions, comments? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Maybe I did want to comment that this is for, and that's fine to vote, but this is for help with the mail-in ballots, and I think this past election, we probably had more mail-in ballots than ever before. It's certainly nationwide we did, and I'm guessing we'd had more at Tompkins County.
All right, I think that was unanimous. Great. All right, thank you to Board of Elections. And just while we're on Board of Elections, I do want to thank all the people who worked at the polls and kept things going smoothly and safely, and thank you to our commissioners for managing the election. I know it's no small task, especially on a presidential year. So, you know, it's the folks in the counties and the local places that actually keep things going. So many thanks to them. All right, we have numerous resolutions from county administration.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
We know there was a court case that changed declared the law for even year elections unconstitutional. We know that's under appeal. It is petitioning, I would think, would start for this legislature, people who wanted to run for the seats, in late February, early March.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if we know how this process is going to work out. Is the State Board of Elections going to tell us what to do if there isn't any kind of a decision on this, or do we have to follow the lower court? So I'd be interested in perhaps hearing about that from our election commissioners.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll reach out to them and see if they can come to the December meeting.
That would be good.
Yeah, they've also asked me to look into it.
Okay.
I have not yet, but happy to be prepped on that for December and work with them
That'd be great.
before then.
All right, so, yeah, it's a question. All right, now on to administration. We have first appropriation from contingent fund, county administration, funding for community recovery grant program administration, ID 12866. Can somebody move that? Susan moves, seconded by Rich. Yeah, anything to say, Bridget?
No, pretty straightforward. This is just appropriation of unspent funding that was budgeted for the MRB group for Community Recovery Fund.
Rich?
I did have a question. It shows $89,000, but then we're moving around 45. But it doesn't really say that's what was left unspent. Is that the remainder? And if the other money was spent, where was it spent? I guess 44,000?
Yes, Norma, could you address that question?
Yeah, I was trying to get unmuted here. Yeah, so the balance was spent in previous year. We just didn't spend it all in the same year. So we've just moved what was unspent to, or requesting to use what was unspent for 2024.
Okay, maybe we should change the third whereas, because it says that funding remained unspent as of December 31st, 2023, and the only number we've seen then is 89,000. So maybe we want to make clear that 44,000 was spent and 45 remained unspent.
Yeah, I think we can do that. So in that third whereas, as of December 31st, 2023.
45,000 remained unspent.
Yes. Does that, everybody get that? I think that's probably friendly. Okay, anything else? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, we have budget transfer, county administration, transfer of salary infringes to county historian, and that's ID 12772, and you have a copy of this, a revised version on your desk. And are you willing to move the revised?
I'm moving the revised version.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Rich. Okay, I know there was some questions about the county historian, and maybe Norma, could you speak to this?
Yeah, sure. This was, so the county, historically, the county historian has received a stipend for prior to our new county historian, they received a stipend. We added the historian to our county's payroll rather than having an actual check stipend created. And in doing that, the payroll and HR added the historian to payroll through their functional unit. So basically what was happening was we're holding the budget, county administration, she's getting paid out of her budget. So we're just trying to make this, square this off and move her funding into her budget. That's what this is. And the reason it's done by resolution is because it's two separate programs. The county historian has its own program, county administration has their own program, and based on the fiscal policy, this is the way these transactions have to take place.
Okay, questions, Rich?
The numbers seem to have changed fairly substantially, and interestingly, while the salary's gone up, the fringes have gone down, and I was wondering if you could speak to that. I don't remember us in our budget putting 10,000 in for county historian. We did?
Yes, that's been the stipend for at least 2 years.
All right.
Couple years, yeah, it was increased. And so I can try to explain, I was in my haste to address some of the concerns that were happening during the budget, expanded budget committee. I created this resolution to just move the portion that seemed to be unaccounted for in the county historian's budget. But as the correction is just kind of cleaning that up because the entire budget needed to move over, and our finance department helped us kind of walk that through before it came to you. So that's on me. I created that. And then the fringes are based on we have two different fringe rates. One is for those folks who part-time has a reduced fringe rate over full-time employees that have a higher fringe rate. And so the one you're looking at now represents a reduced fringe rate.
Okay. Other questions?
Or did I confuse things more?
Yeah, now just in the back of my mind, what was the stipend before? 6,000 was sticking in my head.
It was 7,500 as I recall,
Okay.
and it got changed. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are we ready to vote then on the revised version? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, now we have some policies, everyone's favorite. All right, resolution to update the administrative policy manual, policy 07-08, email. Doc ID 12852. Can somebody move that? Rich, seconded by Susan. Questions, comments, anything you want to start off saying, Bridget?
Just that this is the next batch of ITS-related policies that the team over at IT, we have Lauren and Kim here to answer any questions, have been diligently working on to make sure that we're in compliance with best practices across the cybersecurity space. I will say for these three policies, we took a new approach and convened all department heads and deputies and had a really great, robust conversation with Kim and Lauren about questions and concerns related to these policies. So I feel like that will continue to happen in an effort to make sure everyone is clear on the policies and knows how to implement them in practice. But for any specific questions, Kim, I see, is here.
Mike.
On packet page 22, looking at D, says users of county email systems are expected to check and respond to email in a consistent and timely manner during county business hours. And I think that will not work for a lot of probably managers and certainly for legislators.
Okay. Greg?
I'm wondering, are we interpreting that the business hours of the person who is responding? Or is that like 8 to 4, right? Because if you work at Dewar or the airport overnight, like
those are your business hours.
Those are your business hours. So
Yeah.
Is that how, I mean,
That's the spirit of that. So the expectation is that when you're at work for your 4 hours, 8 hours, that you would check your email during that time. And we worded that so that, that the expectation is not that you need to be checking your email 24/7 necessarily.
Right.
But the expectation is that if communication from your managers or all county employee emails, that you would at least check your email once while you're during the business day.
Right, and I think it goes both ways. We don't want people most people feeling like they have to spend their weekend checking their email, or they're obligated to, respond to a legislator late at night or whatnot. So, yeah. Other thoughts? Rich?
You could see, I think it's helpful to have this here in case there's an employee that just stops responding to emails, so you can discipline as a result. And I'm also thinking that if county legislators email outside of normal business hours or don't check their email consistently, that's up to the voters to do something about it.
Yeah.
But but we are a different category, as Mike makes clear. I'm okay with the language.
Okay. Greg, and another hand?
Yeah, I think, it's funny, we get this, and then we're supposed to be looking at it from the staff perspective, but we always look at it from the legislator's perspective.
Yeah.
I think from a staff perspective, this is perfectly fine. My only question is the encryption of confidential information. I could just see that being a problem with the 14 of us, working some from county devices, some not from county devices. So we probably just need a little training or refresher at some point on how to do that, and I just point out or letter I under 2I in the policy.
Yeah, I did the online training that we had to do, and I feel like that was the first time there was ever something that said, here's how you encrypt an email. Like, I had never learned that before. I had no idea. And we should probably get clear about, for ourselves, for legislators and administration, like, what should we be encrypting, and does everyone know how to do that? Maybe we need a little legislator-specific education on that.
I can do it right now. Put encrypt in the subject line.
Put encrypt in the subject line for...
Yeah, if you're sending emails outside the organization, that will encrypt it to anybody outside the organization. Within the organization, emails are already encrypted.
Okay.
So if you're sending it using your county email, sending them between legislators, that already is encrypted.
Okay, that makes sense.
Do you put the word encrypt in the subject line?
Yeah.
Anywhere in the subject line. It's not case sensitive. It's just that the word encrypt has to appear in that subject line.
I think you should do like a 12-slide PowerPoint on how to do that.
Well, it is in the training. It's in the training.
Yes.
Amanda?
Just to address Legislator Mezey's concern about the email system during the hours, this did come up when we had the department head discussion, and the department heads did agree that email is an expected form of communication if you work at the county, and we sort of had a similar discussion, but left it up to each department to determine what their business hours are, because we very clearly understand not everybody works the same hours, but it did seem important to them to not, at that point, remove the language.
Thanks. Maury?
Yeah, I had a question about the encrypt and sort of a general thought on the policy, and that's when you type encrypt in the subject line, will the recipient see that, or does that just make the email encrypt?
No, the recipient will see that, yes.
Okay, and does the recipient have to do anything to de-encrypt it?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's, they get a link with, they can choose different methods to receive that email. Usually the easiest is to get a one-time passcode emailed to their email account, and then they log into a secure portal to receive it. And the training that all county employees have to take kind of go through that process.
Yeah, it is in there. I saw it.
So I would just say this does indeed warrant training before, folks are called out for not complying with it, because a lot of it, if it isn't new, it hasn't, as far as I know, been published a lot.
Yeah.
And it would certainly, I'm just looking at it from my perspective. There are things in here that I haven't done, so.
I think when we do onboarding, for every county employee, we go over this. IT goes to the onboarding sessions and go over this with each individual employee that goes through an HR orientation.
And we've sent all county staff messaging about it too in the past, especially when we first implemented it. So we've tried to stay consistent with that and also work with individual departments. We do have some departments that we have actually caught, it's not the right word, but we know that our systems have recognized that they were sending information that shouldn't be, and we've individually trained for the encrypt function.
Yeah, I agree with you, Maury. I mean, people shouldn't be, disciplined for this if this is a new thing. And I do think.
Just to clarify, the encrypt's been in place for probably 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, this is the first time watching this latest training, was the first time I heard of it and thought that I needed to know that and do that. So I think more specifically for legislators, but maybe there's other departments that didn't know about it as well. So that would be good to get that out more, so more people are doing that. What else about this policy? Anything else? Sounds like there's nothing else. All right, we ready to vote then on the email policy? All in favor? That's 4, opposed, that's 1. That passes, thank you. Okay. All right, next is resolution to update the administrative policy manual, policy 07-07, remote access. Can I have ID 12851. Can somebody move that? Rich moves, Greg seconds. Thank you. Questions or, sure, Rich, go ahead.
On page 32, the policy on remote access, non-county provided computers are not allowed to access the county network for any reason unless the access is provided by Tompkins County in a public manner, such as web-based email, and then B, remote access to county systems is only to be offered through a county-provided means of remote access in a secure fashion. Is this saying anything about personal computers? I didn't understand it.
I had a similar question. Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, so the intent here is that you couldn't take your home PC and VPN into the corporate network to access data. It has to be a county-supplied device that is managed by the county and approved VPN software to connect to the county's network to get data within the network. So for the legislators, you typically do not access data on the network. You have email, which actually is in the cloud and doesn't live on-prem. So if you're trying to compare it to what your day-to-day is for data, you're not accessing anything internally.
Could you give an example of what somebody inside the network would be accessing that we don't access?
Sure. So let's say Katrina wants to work from home and she needs to get to a Word file that lives on the network inside, on the storage, on servers that we maintain in the data center. She would use her county-issued laptop, open up the VPN software, use her username and password with multi-factor authentication, connect to the network and open that file.
And she's not like physically able to do that with her personal computer.
Correct.
Right. So she would have to have a county device. Rich?
Is there any capability that we're lacking as legislators if we don't have a county laptop? I mean, I haven't missed it, and I felt like it would be an unnecessary expense for the county to buy me a separate laptop.
Sure. No, you typically have not ever kept data that you're sharing between yourselves on the corporate network. Now, that doesn't stop you, say, if you log into your Office 365 account and you use OneDrive, and you want to share a document or a folder with everyone on the legislature, you could certainly do that today. That data doesn't live on-prem here in the county, so you have the ability to share that with whoever you like.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think you need to have, I don't think any of us need to have a county device to access. I mean, I think the things that I access are email and the website, and that's all, you can access that from anywhere. Okay, other questions about remote access policy? I don't see anything. Ready to vote? All in favor? That's unanimous. All right. Okay, the next one is resolution to update the administrative policy manual, policy 07-06, confidential data, ID 12850. And is this an updated one, Jordan? Okay, so you were given an updated version on your desk. Can I have somebody move confidential data? Greg, seconded by Rich. Okay. Maybe, Bridget, could you say what is different about the one that was on our desk?
Certainly. So packet page 42, the section regarding mailing of confidential data, we've just revised that language to allow for the current procedures from the payroll and finance office. So we just wanted to make sure it was reflective of what we are currently doing.
Okay, so that says if confidential information is sent via interoffice or postal mail, data must be transported in sealed security envelopes marked confidential. Is that the part?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Everything else remains the same.
Questions, comments, confidential data you want to share? All right, let's go ahead and vote on that. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next one. Resolution to update the Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 02-47, lactation accommodations, ID 12849. Can I have somebody move that? Greg moves, Susan seconds. And this looks like an update.
Yes, so as you will recall, we recently adopted this new policy for the county, and now we are aligning our language with the most recent New York State and federal law language. Essentially, that law allows for 30-minute paid breaks each time, whereas previously it was limited in the amount of paid time that was allowed for employees. So you'll see the language will reflect the model language provided by New York State.
Yeah, great. I thought this was good, positive changes. Questions, comments? Mike?
Yeah, I just, when we looked at it, our old language, we were concerned about the, making sure that women who are using this policy understand that the county is supportive of that. There was some language in the old policy, and that I don't see it here, so I think that's great.
Yep. Yeah, we certainly don't want anyone to feel alienated or isolated for using this policy, and make it as easy as possible for folks. Anything else? All right, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, resolution to update the Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 01-54, Center for History and Culture Tenant and Lease Policy, ID 12828. Greg moves, seconded by Susan, and I will look at you, Bridget.
Yeah, so technically, this is just a procedural update to the policy that was adopted, so there are no changes to the policy language itself, but we did realize that we hadn't included the actual application in the policy.
Oh.
So we created that, and you'll see that here in the packet. It does follow all of the requirements in the language outlined in the policy. So this is what an interested tenant would complete and submit for consideration to be a tenant in the building.
Greg.
And then from this, we engage in an actual written lease agreement?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think there's any open spaces as far as I know. Rich?
Yeah, this is from the broken record file, but as long as the Tompkins Center for History and Culture has been there, I've advocated that there should be some procedure for startups, arts and cultural startups, to utilize the facilities without actually renting a room, but perhaps having some storage lockers for materials and being able to use the meeting rooms to see if they're viable or not. And you know, I think there wasn't a lot of interest from the tenants because they just want the building. But to make it more vibrant and sort of innovative, I'd like us to continue to think about how we might be able to do that. It's certainly ancillary to this policy, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to put it out there once again.
So on that note, Rich, I actually have worked on with Ben a policy for them, for the building, for rentals of the 4 spaces, the 4 rooms, the IC, I don't remember what it's called, the room, the Dorothy Cotton conference room, the other conference room, and the atrium. And we're kind of trying to put into place what those costs would be, what the process would be if, you know, if the History Center gets a request that Cinemapolis wants to use the boardroom, you know, on a monthly basis for their board meetings, what would that cost? Should we charge a nonprofit? Should we charge a for-profit? You know, all of that. So it is coming together, that aspect of it. And I think that the other tenants, just in the discussions I've had with them at the governance committee, they're completely open to that. And most of them don't really want to have anything to do with it. So, but part of the positive for someone who does, you know, facilitate those is that they could charge a small administration fee and get, you know, a small amount of income from that. So.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're having those conversations, just if you could think about it, there is room in the basement where there could be some small storage areas for these organizations to camp.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is Ben Sandberg's, you know, ideal as well, that other organizations and nonprofits could use the various spaces for, you know, whatever their needs might be. That's kind of the point of the building, so.
Thanks.
Yeah. So that was off topic, but any questions about this application or this policy? Anything else? All right, all in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, we are moving on to communications. We have the bylaws of the Tompkins County Public Information Advisory Board, following the template of from our clerks and the various things to keep in mind. And this is ID 12846. And can I have somebody move that? Greg, seconded by Rich. Anything you want to say about it, Dominic?
I have nothing to add.
I did look through this, and the board looked through it and seemed very amenable to the changes. So any questions? All right, all in favor? Great, that's unanimous. Thank you. While you're up here, do you want to give us any updates?
Thanks. Yeah, I have a few updates for you today. First update is that the county's website is still on track to be launched in December on the new platform. We have been, it's been a pretty Herculean effort on behalf of many staff across the organization. This week, about 30 folks from different departments are completing each 3 hours of training related to how to manage and update the website. And design work and back-end work is happening. Rob and I are taking that on from the administrative role. So that is slated to launch in December. I do not know the date yet. I would like to give a brief run-through of the site at a meeting. I don't know if GO or the legislature meeting would be appropriate, and I don't know timing. So I will keep you posted on that as we get closer to launch. But the development of the site went very well. The combining, trimming, and clarifying of content went very well. So I'm really glad with how our staff are managing that transition, and the new software is much easier to use. And the second update I have is just a short success story of Election Day at the Board of Elections. I wanted to thank Alana and Steve and their staff, Bridget from administration and IT who are here, or well, they may have stepped off the Zoom, but and then emergency response staff. It was an incredible day of collaborative effort from across the organization, where we sort of stood up the prep in case an emergency situation arrived or anything happened. And unfortunately, an emergency situation did arrive with a car crashing into a poll site. No one was injured, and it was not of malicious intent, but we were really prepared for that moment. And from a public information standpoint, beside all of the successes of the operational work, there's two things that I was able to put together, or we're putting together from the day. One is we kept a almost minute by minute rundown of here's what happens in Tompkins County on Election Day at the Board of Elections. And so I'm hoping to publish that once it's edited for a little clarity, so that the public can see a bit of a behind the scenes of here's how election integrity is managed locally. Here's the people behind it. Here's how we manage that emergency situation or a voting machine that went down. So that was really interesting to put together, and that's the type of public information effort I think that can really build trust for our organization from the public. And the second piece is we've had, we continue to have challenges recruiting poll workers. It's always hard to find people, and we're looking for new ways to sort of do that leading into any election. So this year, Rob went out to many polling sites with camera and took portrait photos of people who are working our elections and some voters. So, and took quotes, sort of recorded some quotes from folks. So we're planning to put together an actual little print booklet that has portraits of Election Day in Tompkins County with people talking about the work they do, so that Board of Elections, League of Women Voters, folks here, we can all sort of share with the community. You could be a part of this. It's a storytelling effort. And we heard some pretty amazing quotes from our staff. So it was a really heartening experience, and I'm looking forward to crafting those.
That's awesome. That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Great.
that is amazing. It sounds like that's something too that may have a longer term opportunity, right? As we look to the county historian to, kind of look at what elections or what, voting day or those type of things, civic engagement looks like in Tompkins County. So hopefully we can, continue with that and continue to capture those things, because it really is a snapshot in time of sort of where the county is, where our country is, et cetera.
Absolutely, and I'll make sure all of you have copies of everything, both digitally and print, when they're completed.
Thank you.
Susan.
Speaking as a librarian, you made me think of something. So I figured that every document, all that we create through the legislature, is archived somewhere. Okay.
Yes,
Thank
the
you.
clerks are responsible and
Great.
do a great job of that.
Thank you.
And all of the minutes are in these red books over here, so you can go back, and every year or two, they put all the minutes in, and you can go back and find a day, and yeah.
Those are the minutes of the full legislature, and they go back to the 1800s.
Yeah,
There's some more books in Dan's office.
it's really fun to go back, and especially go back and find your own name in there.
Yes, I know that also Maureen Reynolds, she has done an amazing job with digitization of records, so I didn't know if some of this was included, but I think this sounds phenomenal. Thank you so much. I think it'll be really important.
Yeah, it was really grateful from a communication standpoint to have an opportunity to do it. The last presidential election, we were up in the EOC for COVID, and we certainly paid attention to the election, but on a whole different ballgame. This year, the national, state, and local sort of preparation efforts in terms of emergency preparedness were pretty incredible here and across the nation. So yeah, just thanks to our staff, and I'm excited to share those things with you.
Great. Anything else for Dominic? All right. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Okay. A couple of legislature resolutions. We have the date of the 2025 organizational meeting, doc ID 12827. Can somebody move that, please? Susan moves, seconded by Mike. And this is just setting our organizational meeting on January 7th, 2025 at 5:30. Any questions, comments? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. And then we have designation of newspaper, ID 12836. Can somebody move that? Rich moves. Is there a second? Susan seconds, thank you. And this is designating the Ithaca Journal as our official Tompkins County Legislature newspaper, where we would send notices and such. Mike.
I do want to give a nod to Dominic. Last year, you gave us a nice report on why we have to do this. Having said that, I don't think any of us are happy about the fact that the local news coverage in the Ithaca Journal is not good. And we get much better coverage from the weeklies and even some of the online sources. Having said that, whose turn is it to vote against it this year?
I think numerous people. Greg.
I'm going to vote against it just so that it's not on the consent agenda and it doesn't have to get pulled off, so that we can have the same discussion we do every year.
You can always request that it not be put on the consent.
I know, but then I'd have to vote for it.
Trying.
Yeah, I mean, good point, Mike. I mean, we did talk about this extensively last year, and we had a lot of support from Dominic, and the times are changing. We don't have a daily newspaper. Many places probably don't have a daily newspaper. The world is digital now, so this is pretty antiquated, but I think we still have to do it at the moment. Anything else you want to say before you vote or don't vote? Or, well, you have to vote, yes or no, but.
Can I make one short note? Earlier, you approved the Public Information Advisory Board bylaw, so I just thought I'd tie this into something that the Public Information Advisory Board's been talking about. So yeah, I won't bore you with the details on why we have to continue to do this, and New York State is unable to change it. But in terms of the supporting of the local news ecosystem, that is something that, since we produced that report last year and began this conversation with PAB, a ton of conversation has happened at that group, as frequently as monthly, about what can be done to support increasing coverage in local news. And there will be more coming out from that group, hopefully within the next several months. But they have convened, we've convened some local philanthropic organizations, not-for-profit news organizations, and a national organization called Press Forward. Press Forward is a, many $100 million initiative across the United States to find new ways to support local journalism. There's no New York State chapter that increases access to funding and grants and such for these news sources. So locally, I can tell you that several interested institutions are considering such a chapter, and that conversation has been very positive so far. So in terms of increasing local news, I think that that is our best shot to do that, is to work through this angle, and I'm very excited to see that move forward.
Yeah, great. And there are a lot of local folks working hard on reporting and news and, you know, making sure what's happening is out there. So I have a lot of gratitude for them who are actually doing the work. It's maybe not enough for some of us, and there's a lot more to be covered, but people are doing the work. So, Greg.
Could the Public Information Advisory Board ever, or could you pose it to them, look at an advocacy resolution, something we would put in the feel-good bucket that we could send to Albany about this?
One was passed by the legislature last year.
We did that last year, right?
Yeah.
And I think a future version that adapts with anything that's being considered at the state level should absolutely be considered, perhaps even on a yearly basis. State senators and assembly people have brought this up over time and then failed to get it out of committee or the full support for myriad reasons. I think the most recent reason is just that there's a lot of other pressing issues and they took precedence, which is
short memories in Albany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that's something we have all the tools in our toolkit to continue to do.
Yeah. Mike.
Just that one element of the Ithaca Journal is how many jobs we have lost in Tompkins County from this organization, and yet they continue to advocate for the support of having the legal notices and other things there. I mean, they had a building, they sold it, they ran their own presses. I think of all the press jobs that we lost, not to mention the photographers and the reporters and the editors there. It was a going concern, and it's nothing now. It's out of Rochester.
One just very short closing note. One thing that I really have come to learn in my time thinking about supporting local news from how the county can do it as a government, in addition to us publishing information as best we can that's as clear and accurate and responding to reporters, is thinking of ways to invest in local news. For us, that's really just buying advertising. And there's got to be the firewall between the journalist side and the business side, and that has to persist. But I think, and this year with the budget challenges, no OTR was brought forward to do this. But I've been thinking about having a central OTR to say, if we want to support local news, we may need to just advertise our programs from the county to the tune of a few, tens of thousands or more dollars a year. I think that would make a huge difference in the local news, and maybe an OTR to consider in the future, because that's the only way to get government funding to these reporters in the structure that we have today.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thanks for your time on that.
Yeah. Rich.
I certainly don't want to make any changes to our budget right now, but we will have money in our contingent fund, and if the PIAB comes forward with a specific proposal for changing our policy on advertising, I think that's something for us to consider in 2025 as we go along.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would say I was one of those employees at the Ithaca Journal, having delivered it as a youth, and I'm no longer employed. I've lost my job there.
All right, we ready to vote? All in favor? That's 4. Oh. That's 3 opposed.
We had 3, I'm voting against.
Okay. That's 2 opposed.
Just to keep Katrina on the edge of her seat.
That's right. All right. And let's see, one more for the legislature. Correction of errors, ID 12835. Can somebody move that? Mike, seconded by Rich. And again, this is one of our yearly end of the year. We do every year that the clerks can correct any manifest errors going forward. questions or comments? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. So the next item here is a discussion and a question. So Legislator Pillar had signed up to go to the Facing Race Conference, which is in November, coming up, I believe. And originally that expense was going to be covered by the travel and training funds out of administration, I believe. And there was a recent request from Charlene, I think, that we switch that funding back to the legislature travel and training line, which would open up more funding for administration to have somebody else go. And I see Charlene just come on. And is that correct, what I'm saying?
Yes, originally we were going to use some of our ARPA funding, but we reached a roadblock with our ARPA, and we asked that Legislator Pillar use her training and their training and travel so we can open up another funding opportunity for two staff members to attend, two additional staff members to attend. And they happily obliged, so we're asking if they could move this over in this time.
Great. So, so you have in your packet the chart with what has been used so far, which legislators have used funding. And as far as I know, no other legislators have let the clerks know that they are using funding for the rest of this year. So there is actually $19,000 remaining, and Veronica's expense of almost $2,000 could easily be covered by that. So questions, comments? Is this okay with folks? How do you feel about it? Susan?
I just have a question. Does any remaining amount carry over to the next year?
No.
No.
From the legislator?
Yeah, from that
No.
19,000, so we would start over, right? Okay.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, I think this is fine. I like the idea of it making some more opportunities for other people to attend.
Yep, okay. Anything else? All right. Then there's nothing we have to vote on, but this was sort of an informational item. Like the normal process would have been for Veronica to come to GO and say, I want to go to this, conference. But we've had staff and legislators have gone to this conference in the past, so I think it's pretty, well approved. Rich?
Is there a dollar figure? You said
yeah, sorry.
Roughly 2,000?
It's just under 2,000. Okay. All right, moving right along. Okay, I had a couple things for a chair report. So when we were discussing the Ukraine flag and it being in chambers, having it flown outside, we had some conversation here that I've been trying to remember about the flag policy, and folks I felt like at that time said maybe we need to look at the policy again. There were some things that maybe weren't included. So that kind of fell by the wayside, but then I checked in with Veronica and WDIC because she had said, they had said maybe that WDIC should look at it. WDIC did take a look at it. They did not feel like there was anything they needed to change. So I'm coming back to you all. as not as someone who felt like there needed to be changes, but I remember we had a conversation. Do you all feel like there was something in that policy that needed to be looked at again or considered again? And if so, are you willing to be the one to do that? Mike?
It seems like when we had the discussion about letting the resolution for the Ukraine flag operate and ending that last summer, that we said we would look at the policy so that, for example, that flag could be put up under the policy for 30 days in the future in the legislature. Because we have a flagpole in here, there isn't an outdoor flagpole for this building. And you know, there may be other flags. I know I harken back when we first did it was when we were putting up the African national flag. We're putting up the rainbow flag and other things like that. And I just think that there ought to be an opportunity if someone wants to put it forward with a flag that's on the lists or of a country, for example, we should be able to do that.
Okay. Are you willing to look at the policy? And because I'm not really personally sure like what changes should be made.
Sure, and I think that was part of the discussion was whether it authorizes to do that already or not. And I'd be more than happy to look at that again.
Okay, great. Were there other thoughts or questions about the flag policy from anyone? Okay, all right, Rich.
Just a new topic, going back to your comments about the appointments. If we could bookmark it for next year, maybe a committee goal would be looking at our advisory board form and whether we want to make any changes to get information in a different way or different information.
Sure, the application. And that actually, I feel like that was a question that came up a year ago, and Veronica was talking about, or somebody was talking about wanting it to be more accessible, easier for people to apply, on having it online, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it might be time to relook at that sort of in a bigger way. And what information is it that we're looking for from an applicant? I'm not quite ready to think about next year yet, though.
Well.
Okay, I'm just making a note. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which is absolutely not geo-related, but I had to take the moment to talk about it, was that I went to the Ontario County landfill last week, last week. And it was one of the most eye-opening, amazing things I've ever done. Ontario County landfill is where our personal trash goes and recycling. It is trucked up there and either your recycling goes to the recycling side, and they have this amazing contraption machine that has robots and all kinds of interesting, you know, it's all physics about how they just break apart, you know, the paper goes here and the plastic goes here and the glass goes here, and it's just a fascinating machine that you can, you know, stand and watch it. They have upgraded, they have this robot arm that somehow analyzes the polymers of the plastic and can pick it out. It goes, you know, it's like a thing. It's just, you know, science. It's amazing. But we also had a great discussion with the folks at Casella, and were able to ride up onto the landfill and be up there on top of a giant pile of trash, some of which was mine, and some of which was yours. And it was, I think there's often a disconnect between what you put out on your curb for somebody else to go take away and actually seeing where it goes. So if anybody ever has the interest in going there, the Casella folks were great. You know, the guy who drove us around was just talked a mile a minute, loves his job, loves, you know, learning all the science and making it the most state-of-the-art facility. I think the garbage people often get a bad rap for dealing with other people's garbage, but, you know, none of us want to deal with that, so somebody has to. And I think it's really important for everyone to consider where your garbage goes. You make garbage, and it has to go somewhere. So I just had to take an opportunity to say that, and to thank the folks at our recycling materials management department for making that happen for us. Okay, and I will leave it there and go to county administration. Bridget.
So both you, Amanda, and Dominic did a much better job thanking the folks at Board of Elections and highlighting what went on that day. I just wanted to extend my gratitude as well to the team. It was a great day, and our preparation and planning really paid off. So that's the only update I had.
Great. Any questions for Bridget, administration? All right, so let's go to Charlene Holmes, our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer. Hello.
Hi again. Good morning, everyone. Quick updates. Our Equity Exchange Reading and Discussion Group, our last session for this curriculum, will be held on November 12th at 12 o'clock up at 55 Brown Road. Our last session will be Dialogue in Action, and that will be facilitated by our very own Rachel Graham, who is also co-chair of JEDI. So please check out the newsletter for all reading materials, and be prepared to have a good conversation and see how we can move this work forward. We have taken surveys, pre and post surveys throughout this curriculum so that we can measure success. So there will be some statistics that I'll be able to share with you about how people perceived the reading and discussion groups, and that will come in the month of December after we've collected and aggregated that data so that we can make it palatable for all. So that will be on its way. The institutionalizing equity report final draft is almost complete and will be distributed to the organization for edits and feedback in the next coming week. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up because it may be coming across your desk. After that review from the organization, we will finalize the report and then move into the institution and implementation of that report. So I'm really, really excited. Things are coming together. I recently attended a GARE meeting for Chief Equity and Diversity Officers. And for those of you who don't know what GARE is, it is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. And I shared our methodology and framework with the individuals from all over the country in that space, and it got really, really positive feedback. So I'm excited to see how we are able to implement this and be very forward-thinking and innovative as a county government, especially with, our landscape and how we are championing this work in our region. So very exciting news in that arena. JEDI is still meeting. They meet every third Friday of the month from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Members are still, new members are still encouraged to join us. An ad hoc communications committee has been created. JEDI will be working on a campaign called Do Equity Intentionally, and it's a play on DEI. So there will be a 3-part video series. The first video will be about the history of equity and diversity at the county. The second video will be short interviews with staff members who bubble to the top and would like to share how they do equity intentionally. And then the third video will be community focused. How can the community get involved? How can they support the work of equity and diversity at the county? And all of this will be happening at the same time of us being prepared to update the website and have more of a visual presence of equity and diversity for our external and internal constituents, as well as aligning that with our intranet and making sure that our staff has access to all of these resources. A lot going on, but just wanted to give you guys an update. And then lastly, our compliance assessment project has taken off, and we are in the weeds. That should be going on for the next 3 to 4 months. I don't anticipate any large updates. We are just going through the assessment process, but I wanted to let you all know that that has gotten off the ground. So thank you very much. That's my update for today.
All right, you've got a few things going on. Questions or comments for Charlene? How many people do you have going to Facing Race this year?
It's 8 of us in total.
Wow, that's great. That's excellent. I assume that will be a good educational experience, and I hope you all have fun too.
Thank you. There are some community members that will be in attendance as well. I've spoken with Leslyn and Travis, and we plan on meeting up with the city. And so it's going to be a really nice presence from Tompkins County. So we'll be sure to report on that when we return.
Yeah, definitely want to hear how it goes. Thank you. And yeah, thanks for all of your report and all the good work you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, County Attorney Maury Josephson.
I would add another election-related report. There was a duty that my office performed that was kind of special, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't know it was part of our duties until until Judge Ahern showed up in our office, and then the phone started to ring on Saturday afternoon. And that is that we handle voter applications to get court orders to be allowed to vote. And so those are people who, for example, sign up with Motor Voter, but the information hasn't gotten to the Board of Elections yet. So Judge Ahern wanted a new process for processing those, and we had a county attorney's office full of voters on Monday, and we pushed all the applications through, and I think the judge only turned down one who said he was too busy to register. So it was really a nice thing to do and very supportive of the voting process. Otherwise, of late, our office has been supporting the sheltering issues that have been that have come up vis-a-vis St. John's. There's something new every day on those, so we will continue. And other than that, any questions, I'm happy to respond to.
Great, thank you, Maury. Any questions? Well, thank you for your good work that you continue to do. Director of Finance, Lori Scarrett.
Thank you. Good morning. The only update I have today is the in-rem foreclosure figures. And as of yesterday, we had 35 residential, 35 vacant and commercial for a total of 70. We have 2 installments in default, and we currently have 34 installment agreements.
All right, questions, comments? Mike?
Lori, the ones in default, the agreements, how do we handle those?
So when they miss the when they miss the first payment, we put them in default.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So they go into the process with everybody else.
So the property is no longer withheld. It's put in the process for
Correct.
foreclosure.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for Lori? All right, well, thank you, and thanks for that and for all the good things you're doing. Committee members. Rich.
As I indicated earlier, I was hoping we could have a short discussion about the bylaws at the library and to give me some direction on how you'd like me to proceed. In front of you, you should see the bylaws that were approved by the trustees last spring and submitted to us. I believe they comply with what the legislative clerks are asking for, except for on the first page in Section 1, or Article 3, Section 1, Members A, it's saying there shall be no fewer than 9 nor more than 15 members. I believe they would agree to a number at this point just to get it done. I'm not sure this is a critical issue, but I know that other boards have made the same request and been turned down, so I don't want to create a difficulty there. At the same time, I'd just like to get us to the finish line. We could approve what's in front of us today, or if you wish me to go back, I can get it to the trustees and come back to you in December with a definite number.
Okay, thank you. So first I'll ask, do folks want to take a minute to look at this right now and try to come to a vote? Or would you rather give Rich a little bit of direction and just sort of make our decision about what we think for that one item, and then look at this again in December? Mike?
Personally, I'd like to have a chance to review them again. I just immediately looking here for that language that we wanted in about the liaison, and it may be here, but I just don't see it yet.
Yep. Okay. Right. That was another sticking point about before the bylaws did not note that there was a legislator liaison and what that legislator liaison's role would be. So, Susan.
The last 4 revisions were ones that were done under my leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So I was surprised to see that the last time they were revised was 2016. And I'm sad that we had to be explicit about the legislative liaison because it is required, I think, in several other places, but it's good to have it in there, so I'm glad to see that. And I wanted to just speak a minute about the range of trustees. I think this came about from, I can't remember if this was in the bylaws before, but each time, I believe the original number was 15, and there were 1 or 2 years where someone dropped off and it took a while to get someone, so they added a range, or the board added a range. But the standard number has been 15 for decades. But, I could see going down to maybe 12. I mean, I think it's really important to have community participation, so a little bit larger number is probably better. I'm anxious to have these approved, but I could wait.
Okay. Greg?
I'd like to see, gosh, I can't speak either today, I apologize. I would not like to see a range. I guess I would like to see a definite number to speak in more positive way. So, if it's 12 or 15, they say 9 to 15, I don't know. I don't like the idea of a range, because I think that's the direction we've been giving every other organization, and I think we just need to stick to our program.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Been a while since I thought about it, but is it in the charter and or state law, the number?
It is. Katrina?
The charter states that the membership needs to be, I think, between 9 and 15. That's where the 9 and 15 comes from.
Gotcha.
But our policy is asking for a static number, because then that involves...
Well, then we'd have to change the charter.
No.
No.
Not necessarily.
The
The charter just says that our number has to be between the 9 and 15.
It doesn't say.
It can still be a number.
It can still be a single number rather than a range.
All right.
Currently, we have, with the addition, if the one addition goes through from earlier in this meeting to the legislature in 2 weeks, then there'll be 13 members on that board.
Okay, that was going to be my question. I would like to see us, or them, choose a number. I feel like that there's there's not really a reason not to, in my mind, and this is our policy that we created, and as much as they may push back against it, they still have to work within our policies. That's part of their role. So I guess I would, if we don't want to choose that number, I would look to Rich and say, if you want to ask them what their ideal number would be, and bring that back to us, and then we would include that and vote on this in December, if that's the will of the group. Yeah, Rich.
Listening to the committee members, I guess my advice to them would be to go to 15. That we're looking for more representation on the board. We want a more vibrant, bigger board.
Okay.
And
I'll just say that worked well. That was a good number.
yeah,
We
I mean,
got a wide variety because it's the county library.
Yeah.
So it was important to get people from throughout.
we might see some issues with quorum with a larger number, but that's, I guess, what they need to deal with. But that's what I'm hearing from you. A set number and a larger number. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and again, like I would hope that there would be a lot of community members out there who would want to participate. I know it's a volunteer position. I know it's a big commitment. It's a large responsibility, but you know, there's a lot of interested, active people out there. I hope that, you know, the trustees are searching far and wide to bring more people in to participate. Okay, so it sounds like we're leaning towards 15, but we may still want a little time to review this and actually vote on it ourselves next month. Is that correct?
I will plan on coming back in December with further approval from the trustees. And as I indicated, they seemed very interested in wrapping this one up.
Okay, Susan.
I mean, one of the things I think they need to understand is they have, if they have 13 members, they can operate. They don't have to wait to operate until they have a full 15, but they're required to have 15. And I think that's a good number. And I do think that they should comply with the requirements that the legislature has set. I would hope that there would be a lot of applicants. There used to be no problem.
Yeah.
Are there, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are there other changes or recommendations that we can provide to maybe Rich offline? If there's, you know, substance or grammar or anything like that. So Rich, when you come back, you know, the library board has seen the breadth of our recommendations. I just want to make sure from a timing standpoint, you have enough time to go back to the library board. You know, we maybe have, you know, till the beginning of next week to provide you some commentary, if any.
Yes, please. The library board meets on the fourth Tuesday of the month. So.
Okay, and we're the first Thursday.
Yeah, and just for a little context, this committee did go back and forth with them last year numerous times, and I brought it back and forth and tried to make some of these changes, and I think it eventually just got stuck, and I transitioned off and Rich transitioned on as the liaison, and it seems like, you know, those changes that we did make sort of never really got discussed again. So, but yeah, I think if you have other questions or changes, you know, certainly let Rich know and we can talk about that more.
I was not a member of this committee last year, so I apologize for missing that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew the timeline to respond to Rich, and we didn't let this drag out.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Katrina.
If the committee doesn't mind, I would like to go ahead and put these in our standard format for bylaws, and we'll take a look at them one more time and make sure that everything's covered that we had.
That's great.
And obviously, if you have any issues, if you could let me know before that,
I
before
definitely will.
Tuesday.
And the liaison is addressed. It's not our exact verbiage, but it's the same meaning.
Yeah, I just found it and read it, and I think it is our language that this committee asked for.
Forward last year, yeah. Okay, great. Well, thanks for getting that moving again, Rich, and we will look at this again in a month. Anything else from committee members? Other topics? Mike?
Just would point out, we were just talking about local news and the media. Ithaca Times this week, on the front page is our chair, Dan Klein, in front of the old Key Bank building where we are going to have the temporary Code Blue Center. So point that out. There's an article about our homeless population and what Tompkins County is trying to do about it.
Yeah, I mean, I see the Ithaca Voice, I think, does a great job of covering a lot of local events, you know, primarily in the city, but they have some good folks on staff, and they're working hard. So I think, and Ithaca Times and Tompkins Weekly as well. So definitely appreciate them. Anything else? You have quite a few budget adjustments and transfers for information only. I'm pretty sure that's all we've got today. All right, thank you all for being here. I'll see you all this evening at the legislature. We are adjourned.
Thanks, Amanda.